Right, so let's get started. Good morning, everybody. This is a session of the Urban Design Peer Review panel. Today is Friday, July 28th. We have two projects to review today, but before we do that, we need to review and approve the minutes from our last meeting on June 23rd. If I have a motion to approve the minutes, move approval. Second. Okay, thank you. Everybody in agreement, say yes? Yes. Anyone opposed? No one opposed. Arturo and Arturo. With that, Arturo, would you please tell us about, introduce us to the two projects, perhaps the first project that we are going to do?
Sounds good. Great. Good morning, everybody. We've got two projects this morning. The first one you'll review at University Hills, located in the southern sector. This 274-acre property previously came to the panel in April of 2018 with a different development team and different program. Of course, as you review this proposal, it'll be important to consider that half-a-mile distance in another property, not in the developer's control, separated from the UNT Dallas campus and Dark Station. Recent community input along with zoning and market guidance provided the program for a walkable community with mixed income for rent and sale housing options served by commercial, retail, and low intensity industrial uses in a network of public open spaces. Design considerations should include attention to land use patterns and interconnected network of streets, parks, and open spaces with strong pedestrian orientation that seamlessly connect it to the larger community. And with that, I'll hand it off to Arthur Santa Maria, sitting behind me, to provide additional detail and introduce his design team.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks, Arturo, and good morning to the panel. And I appreciate you having us here today, an opportunity to present our project. We're excited to be moving forward with the development and getting all of our ducks in a row. I think as a not just us, as a community, we really felt like Southern Dallas needs large catalysts, to really move the needle and start seeing some of the things that have been really gravitating towards just one side of our community and really having left behind other parts of the community. So we're hopeful this will be a catalyst like that. I think the city has demonstrated and put their full force to help make something like this possible. It's a challenging project by all means. Being a first mover on something of this scale, of this style in this area. I think it, can help make that market. So we want to get it right. We spend a lot of time working with the city, with stakeholders, certainly with the university. They're right next door to us. How our plan, their plan, things can be synergistic and work together. Town halls and community meetings and such throughout the area. And that's something that we're really passionate about. Is things that can be have an impact in the community and be a game changer. So certainly has its sets of challenges, but we're excited about being able to pull this together. We've got a phenomenal team. Michael Borgman leading us on the design side of the page and come up with this fabulous plan. We're really excited to be presenting today. So I'll be letting him go into the detail about it and love to have input and collaboration from the city and the panel on that sort of developments.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Board, Page, and as said, we've been working on this for a couple of years now, at least. We've been doing several iterations based on stakeholder input. We've had multiple meetings with different groups. A lot of input from the university, a lot of back and forth. So we feel like we've developed a plan that satisfies a lot of the goals for each one of these groups. So in the packet that we sent you, the first few images really deal with the master plan for University of Dallas for that project. And we felt like it was important to include that in this because some of the guiding principles for that master plan were important for this master plan. Things like really connecting to the community and making sure that the educational aspects have a connection to this community, and they really feed off of one another. The concept of is, this area is surrounded by mostly residential, the university there, surrounding it is mostly residential. To the northeast, and west, and then to the south, I-20, which is, very industrial, and so trying to create a master plan that deals with the differences between all of those uses has been a unique challenge. So let me first start with this. We're working here. So what we did, you can see here, this is the university master plan that we had developed previously. We integrated with it the area plan that was developed for UNT just to show where potential connections and roadways would happen. To orient you, University Hills is here, Camp Wisdom, Lancaster, and I-20 is down here. The Lancaster campus district, this ties directly into that. So those connections that were proposed for that plan, which is the concern of this council, but certainly we wanted to make sure that those connections existed. And so with that, those connections then move to the east, so we can show that there's connectivity between this walkable community and all these other pieces that are coming into play. It's nice, it's 274 acres, a big parcel with the land. These are some of the images of it. It has some steep topography in certain areas, rolling hills, not a lot of stuff and trees out there, more not scrub. But it is a beautiful site that has some really nice amenities. So specifically, this is our master plan we had developed. Wheatland runs through the center of it here. I-20 is down here, and the dark rail line borders is our north border here. And so the idea, concept, and so the concept diagram is to really create a central hub off of Wheatland for the commercial district. And then spanning to the north would be primarily residential, and so these are a mixture of 40-foot and 50-foot wide lots that are roughly 110 deep, along with 25-foot townhomes with the water bars in this area. Primarily up here, and I'm going to we can take a look at some of the use diagrams in a minute. Primarily up in this area are garden apartments. So we have a mixture of office here, life sciences, medical facilities in this zone. We have higher density multifamily with ground floor retail in this area, and then some of the advanced manufacturing to the south toward I-20. There are a couple of hotels that we had earmarked. So this land here technically belongs to the university, but in partnership with them, potentially developing something on that. It has its own challenges because of the grades.
Michael, is there any dark stuff along that stretch of the road?
There is, the dark stuff is about right here, but there is an at-grade crossing here, and so we spent a little bit of time going out there. It's where it's fenced off, and it's not accessible at the moment, but we hope to make a connection directly to the university through that. There is a potential that in the future there could be something. We don't control this land up here, but potentially a road could snake around and tie into one of these roads. One of these roads that we've identified for this campus master plan, potentially in the future, depending on this is a Dallas Park, so again, it has some challenges to be able to make that connection. Now, as I said, we've been through a few iterations of this, so these renderings are not accurate to that plan, but they embody the spirit of what we're trying to do. So we intend to have a large, in the commercial district area, a large open green space, plaza space, much like the 5-1 park. We get food trucks and activities, and full planned and unplanned events happening in this space. Very rich and active. Water features, we show the ground floor retail here, multifamily above, this is office here, and then this area. Again, the spirit is there, the village, just very close to that. So we have several images that talk about the multi-phasing and its uses as well as the green space. We want to So the intent of the phasing is that we would do all of this single family townhome zone in phase one, in addition to a portion of the commercial area, which includes a hotel, one of the higher density multifamily with ground floor retail, some single story retail, this larger water feature here, and then this open green space there as part of phase one. Phase two would come along, really wrapping the rest of the commercial district area. Phase three would be primarily the apartments for Lancaster, and then phase four would be the area that's closest to the university as well as the area down at 20. When we look at the different uses, I walked through them earlier, but they remain the same. So, you know, a lot of the brown here is the townhomes, the yellow are single family residences. The orange here represents the higher density multifamily ground floor retail. This area here is primarily office. You see this area that's shaded. We don't actually control that. We hope to, so we designed the master plan around that cutout. You know, hope to gain that land, but even if we don't, we feel like the master plan is still very successful the way it is. One of the things that I wanted to point out is that this diagram shows all of the open and green space, and we're really proud of it. Out of the 274 acres, 51 acres is dedicated to open green space. We have a number of different images that you have. This is just an example of each one of those. And so the housing, the multifamily housing, we feel like it's going to have, as well as the single family housing, we feel like it wants to be something that is, again, walkable. You walk up to it, you know, each house potentially has, you know, a porch in the front door, the garage entrance on the rear. And so it really creates that walkable community, inviting. You know, very simple, elegant multifamily with, you know, rich colors and materials. On the office side, you know, we're imagining that these are probably no more than 5 stories. Again, to create a very intimate and walkable, engaging space. So that really embodies the center of the development along Wheatland. More commercial opportunities, and so potentially on the land that's close to the university, there might be more opportunities for commercial up in here, as well as we've got a couple of hotel positions, and then really creating a retail gateway into the whole development along Wheatland. And then additional uses, potentially some civic uses in the purple, as well as the dense manufacturing uses.
When you see things, what you anticipate, what would it do?
Down here, you know, oh, the purple. Well, there was some talk at one point about the police station training facility, you know, being down here. I know it's being talked about sort of over here now, but you know, I don't think it's a done deal yet. So there's a potential that can relocate here. We thought that this could be potentially a charter school or the ISD elementary school of some sort, because it would be really nice to have some educational facilities within, you know, this acreage.
Any other public equipment like libraries?
Well, I mean, none of that is, there's a community center here, but no, we haven't anticipated a library. Could be possible. And then getting down to the specifics of phase one, so you mentioned that this is all phase one here. And it's really in two parts. So phase one A is some ground floor retail, a large or high density mixed use with retail and multifamily above, and a hotel and potentially a small office. And then phase two would wrap that to really create that really intense development for the commercial area. And that's while the housing is going on. So we really feel like this whole piece really becomes the catalyst. We need the housing to really let commercial move forward, and we need the commercial to move forward and really let the housing move. So we think those two together work very nicely together, symbiotically together. And with the last one, I'll give a shout out to SWA with these street sections, and so we have a variety of them. With our primary north-south artery here and east-west are similar to one another, where there's 4 lanes of traffic. We have biking lanes on each side and pedestrian off of that. We are looking to try to push the biking lane up so that it's on the same plane as the pedestrian, because it gets it away from the cars and the models and working class and stuff. You can drive through that as a biker. We have some secondary routes here through the neighborhoods, and so they're smaller. In most cases, there's a center turn lane, and the pedestrians on either side, so it makes it very convenient for these smaller neighborhood streets. And so color coded, all of the orange here relates to this one, the lighter blue here relates to this one, and so on. And then last but not least, the bike and low speed circulation paths. So we have some zones in here. So the green dash zone here is really primarily pedestrian. We would envision that emergency access could happen there, but primarily it's just residential. So figuring out what that blocking mechanism is and how to remove that so that emergency vehicles can get when we need to. But really, it's intended to be all pedestrian on that zone. And we also envision, potentially that's something happening here as well. So that's it. Open for questions and comments.
Thank you, Michael. So as we have done in the past, I propose that first we ask questions of about any issues that were not clearly and questions that we may have. We may ask questions, Michael, and what's your name? Arthur. And second, we make our comments. Is that okay? All right. So I should have said at the beginning, Arthur and Michael, but let me say it now, even though it's a bit late. This panel is made up of all volunteers. We are all volunteers. You have an amazing collection here of engineers, historic experts, historic preservation experts, architects, planners, landscape architects. So it's that we are here to. Our goal is to provide you with feedback, positive, constructive feedback. We work on behalf of the city, of course. Our goal is to have a better city, better town. That's all that we care. Many of folks, many of the teams that have presented to us before, they have enjoyed our feedback so much that they have asked to come back. So use us as a sounding board. We tend to be honest, frank, and that's how we like to conduct business. Okay. So with that, questions for Michael and Arthur from the panel.
Let me start.
Please. Yes.
Happy to. Several questions. First is going to be relevant to the adjacency to the Blue Line Dart Rail. Looking at the plan, I see a large parking lot and I see some groupings there. I'd like to hear a little bit more about plans for the accessibility and connectivity to the light rail station.
Well, I'll go this. So it's sort of out of our purview because the light rail station is here and we're here. And we don't control any of this land. So what we've tried to do is set up points at which road connections can be made to the eventual development to happen here to make that connectivity. The only other thing that, as I discussed before, there is an at-grade position here, so we could, cross that. We haven't gone through any of the national things to figure out how long it takes to actually make that happen, but we believe that with the city's help, we can make that happen in itself, of course. So this area here is really filler because it's land that we don't control. It's actually owned by the university right now. So the intent was to create a hotel that was part of their hospitality education system, as well as some ground floor retail with parking behind it, and then potentially some housing over here. And so we wanted to create a placeholder that really helps serve the university community. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, I guess related to that, I assume, and I think I saw it in the presentation, that there's probably significant affordable student housing that's going to be planned for this development, or is that, am I incorrect?
So the university itself is building student housing as part of their master plan. I believe it's coming up in, it's not the current phase, it's their next phase.
It's the next phase. So this is all student housing here. This is all student housing here. It's a mixture of both P3 development as well as university funded.
So, can I piggyback on that question? You were talking about the connections east-west from the UNT land. There are arrows pointing to that side and that side, but the connection from the master plan doesn't seem as clear or strong.
So, there's a roadway that is behind the housing that I guess that arrow should probably be a little bit further down because the intent was to connect there. We need to figure out what's happening here because there is a creek that runs through here. And so, whether we're on that side of the bridge or this side of the bridge, trying to make that connection as well. We did have in an earlier iteration, this was part of the development or part of the change that we made after we visited with the university. And so, we actually had a roadway that we were connected there at one point. So the intent is to make that connection.
Yeah, I had the same question. If you consider more of a grid of streets like that plan, when I was reviewing the materials, I had the same thought as how connected will that be? I know you've got some it sounds like you've got some challenges like features, but did you explore extending or continuing more of a grid?
We looked at trying to create a grid across here, but with the creek bed running through there, there's challenges to doing that. And so we
Team spent a lot of time going down there, stripping the side, trying to figure out what's the best way we can make this as, work as great as urban fabric, given the this. But
Yeah, so.
I'll just add, as far as connectivity to the university, east-west, I'll add that the city is making other investments as well in this area. There's large infrastructure, sewer drainage work being done here. There's more coming on this side. So we believe, this will all sort of be lighted up. Not just with what we're doing as Catalyst, but city is working on infrastructure projects there as well that I think is going to help make this kind of connection possible in the long run. And we don't own this land, so we don't do that, but I think as a community, we're setting ourselves up by having something here that in Catalyst, city working on infrastructure here, and then eventually land programs like this.
I have a couple of them. Or connection with the code for roads and cars. Do we want a grid here? We had a comment earlier that the city park provides a challenge for a connection. Do we want the city park? I want the city park to be a challenge for that connection. That's not what I would hope we would do here. So that's for us to discuss when we get into that. My only other question is, I see the city of Dallas listed as a team member here. Is the city's relationship to this project different in some way? Do they own some of the land or something, or what's the city's relationship? You want to know?
Well, the city does own a little piece of property up to the northeast, right?
Yeah.
But last year, the council approved an enormous incentive package
Okay,
to facilitate
okay,
infrastructure, the spinal infrastructure to create the entire area, but also to provide gap financing for phase one. So yeah, we're partners.
okay. Sizable package. Sizable investment makes you a partner. It certainly does, you know. All right, and then the last thing I said, so to make sure I'm clear, all we are at today is basic land planning. That there's no actual, what we would call urban design available yet. It's just examples of potential things. Is that, and so we're just one step away from a blank slate here. Is that fair to say? We've done the first pass at.
Yeah,
Sounds right.
Norm, if I may, the purpose of your review today is twofold. One is the overall master plan, but also to focus on phase one, because a lot of our funding support is to make the first phase possible. So the building orientations, the layout of phase one is particularly important to us as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
And this is just purely out of curiosity, what is the existing, land that is not part, what are those projects?
The shaded,
Shaded area.
So we have multifamily and office.
No, sorry.
the outparcel.
Yeah, is that housing?
No, it was mostly the office building.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, mostly office.
okay, thanks.
And those are big already?
No,
No,
it's just, we don't own the land.
Oh,
We planned it in
I see.
case we got the land, but we can't show it as part of the master plan because.
So there's nothing built there, right?
There's nothing built yet.
Okay.
Nothing built anywhere, honestly.
Okay,
That's,
yes, that
all right, yes,
Two or three additional questions.
please.
Kind of continuing the connectivity and accessibility and walkability, mobility question theme. We spoke of the city's commitment to invest in infrastructure to make this possible. I wanted to bring up the city's considerable investment in the hike and bike trail network throughout the city. I've been working on 5 Mile Creek, which is just to the south. There are actually long-term plans to bring a trail up Running Springs to this area. Has that been considered in the master plan at this point in terms of connection and extension to regional trails?
The university.
Yeah, the university has a trail system here, again, with the rail, just the rail is elevated. That, you know, that only, at grade crossing, and then it starts to rise, and so it creates a wall between our development and the university. But the university does have a really nice trail system here, shown in orange. And, you can actually walk underneath the dart bridge here and walk through the park. And so, we don't control the land, but we have the ability to do that, it certainly exists.
There's an opportunity right here, with this activity that we were talking about. It needs a lot more exploration and such, but we think we can, with the trail piece of it, we'll want to address that.
Okay. Thank you. The next question, this is related to, there are 2 significant creeks that are running through this property. You've got Running Springs that are running essentially from west to east, up at the top left there. The one that I'm most interested in, though, is the one that's flowing through phase 1. It's called Barney Branch. You're showing the retention pond is kind of in line with that. The Barney Branch actually starts fairly well south of I-20 in terms of its watershed. Have you begun to look at more accurate determination of flood risk in this area, particularly
where Barney Branch and Running Springs, the confluence, it is towards the north entrance.
I can talk to that, yes.
Hi, Jason Fry with BTE and with the engineering company, and we were doing that. So you're speaking about,
But this, yeah, that's Barney Branch,
this one that comes this way,
yes.
right? So, yeah, so there is, it's about right there, is where this comes out this way, a pretty significant amount of water that has taken place. So, yeah, so we've looked at this. This is amenity feature mainly, but it also will service the detention area in there also, but also down in this place, whether we can use some, just to mitigate the water coming through there. I mean, we want the water, I mean, obviously the water has to go through, and obviously this up here is just as much as amenity, trees and creeks and stuff like that. So we have gotten into looking at it generally as far as a detailed study. We haven't, it's not worth it, I don't think, to spend money getting really detailed until we know this is exactly what we're going to do, type thing. So, but we've definitely, to be honest with you, we've looked at several different renditions down here and done some work on some different, had 3 or 4 different ideas of how to mitigate that water and that sort of stuff coming through. So,
And I'll just comment on the team and having said, not with us, but with prior work on this development, there's probably nobody knows the water situations here better than the folks up here. We're, you know, we definitely something that we want to plan around and make sure that it's done right. It's been part of our planning from.
Yeah, and I think you've answered most of this, but I'll go ahead and ask this question too, in terms of beyond just the flood risk evaluation. I think there's substantial amounts of pretty healthy floodplain hardwood forests in this area, particularly in the adjacency to Barney Branch and Running Springs Branch. Also, not so much on your area, but actually this is going to be to the west, so I'll just defer on that. But I'm assuming that really at this point you've only done kind of a high level environmental assessment,
Right.
No wetland delineation of the curves or anything like that. Okay.
that's all kind of teed up, ready to go. You know, we talked about it, just haven't like done the things yet.
Okay.
Yeah, all that's definitely on the radar that needs to be done. And I mean, yeah, we said there's a lot of trees out there. There's definitely some good trees that will need to be saved that are along the creek areas. I mean, it's probably too technical, engineers so I lose a little bit, but I mean, the sanitary sewer, is going to run down the low point for the area. So there's going to have to be some strategic planning of those infrastructures to save the stuff that's worth saving in that area. So that's
I'm an engineer, so
okay.
All right. Any other questions, Michael?
no.
Questions from the panel? No, all right. So shall we turn to comments? Anyone would like to get us started? With comments and feedback? Don, looking at you.
No, really? But I'm going to, because that is my job. Thank you for coming today. And as always, we're excited to see things happening in parts of our city that have not previously had an opportunity for some of these things. That said, given the opportunity, I would talk a long time about this. I won't do so today. You caught me at a bad time. A week ago today, I was in a small aircraft flying over to Big Bend area and had a chance at that altitude to appreciate what a stunningly beautiful place that we live in. And then I think about how lucky we are, despite the problems that have precipitated this opportunity, which is large, undeveloped land areas that are, well, not pristine, they've been used in the past. They are still extremely reflective, I think, of the natural beauty and configuration of this part of the state. And this early in the design process, about all we have to really play off of. Well, because I think the actual urban context that we normally look at is going to be much more pedestrian scale. What do you see? What do you walk up to? How do you feel about it? So what we can look at today is how do we respond to what we've been given? And what you've been given is nearly as I can tell, and I do appreciate having a topo. A lot of times I don't get any topo, I don't have numbers on it. I can only assume what those are, but you mentioned there's a lot of topo, and I can see that there is. I would just say, I'd like to see us respond to that better. When I think of taking advantage of high points and vistas, for instance, and this suggests that there is some right about where Plaza Boulevard ties in, but I don't see any acknowledgement of that in either the design or the layout. I don't really see, the real features, I think, besides that topography mentioned. I don't really see it being responded to in here. I do see a response to the layout of the creeks, but how we respond to those creeks, what happens. And I see a lot of creek frontage to this roadway. I just think that there's, it's unusual to have a piece of property like this undeveloped this far, this close into the urban center of the city. And I'd like to think we do something different here than what we've done in the past. But and again, it's difficult for what y'all are doing to communicate your good ideas in an aerial view like this. Because what we don't see is topography. What we do see is parking, lots of parking. And I will not, by the way, encourage any kind of a road grid. I can see it move away from that sort of thing. I drive a car, I'll go to some more trouble for a beautiful site like this. So I just think there's things to do here without being too specific. Certainly all the components are reasonable. It's almost a little city within a city. Got something of everything here. It's mixed use. But I think I'd like to see the southern sector get things that say southern sector, lay off of the natural beauty that we have there, and again, it may very well, it may be 2 or 3 levels of design detail down. That's kind of why I asked that question. I think at this level, I'd like to hear and see more reference to the opportunities that are presented by what we've inherited with this site, less so about the challenges of those natural features presented. That's my Frankie comments. Right. Sorry.
No, thank you, comments. Always welcome, always insights. Would you guys like to comment on Norman's feedback or?
Sure, no, I think it's good feedback, really. I guess from a topography, I agree, and Dallas goes from this spot, so I think that's not.
Dallas is not flat. Let's stop. Let us.
Part of it, yeah.
Love it. All right. Very freaking flat. So Odessa, but Dallas is. Yeah.
Really nice look over here.
Yeah.
Location.
Yeah, don't show me that, because that gets me excited about something.
I would offer, you mentioned, there's some people around here, so this happens to be the one model that we own, but it's better.
Right.
That in particular is a little bit of a challenge, but I think just figure out a picture of topography is good feedback.
Okay. All right. Would like to comment next. Yeah, please.
So, from the overall master plan standpoint, there's this creek already there, it's a beautiful water feature, or a beautiful feature of the site, and it seems like it would be great to have that be the core of the concept of the master plan. Right now, it is, kind of being enjoyed by single family homes for the most part, not by the core of the development. The mixed use part is kind of on the side, so that would be one thing to consider about that. I do, agree with Norm that not necessarily we need to connect, roadways, but if there is a roadway that is hitting our edge, we should be mindful of how the buildings are presenting to that side and responding to that. It just shouldn't be. Right now, it looks like there hasn't been a lot of thought put into that. The garden apartments on the northeast side, they just seem, it looks like a sea of parking and really on buildings. It doesn't feel like it's a walkable component. In general, some of these plots are really large, and so, you know, we talk about embracing walkability, but at the same time, in to Norm's point, we don't have a lot of detail yet, but it doesn't feel a very walkable area. It feels a lot more suburban than what we would want this to be, I think. I think I'm gonna stop there. I guess one more thing about the amount of green space. There was a comment about maybe 50 acres of green space. And again, trying to make that green space really feel like part of the heart of this master plan. Right now, there's a really large park in the center of phase one. But then there's some other places like down here where there's a lot of green area, but it doesn't seem like a place where people would go and enjoy it. And so I know it's difficult, this is a large development, but I think there might be other ways to make those open areas a lot more beneficial to the entire development and the people that are using.
Thank you much. Any other comments, James, please?
Yeah, I love the ideas. It's great. And it looks like a beautiful site. It'd be great for us to be able to tour all these sites so that we can better understand the topography. Photographs are great. I really like the idea of connecting the various plans, because that's in the preamble, it's in the upfront text. And I agree with Maria, when I got in, started looking at it, and I realized we're looking at something you've been working on for years. I would like to see connections along the edges, you know, so I think if you could just maybe take a look at that and see if this site connects better. Certainly down the dark, I agree with Michael. Connections to dark are going to be very, very important. It can be transformational. I grew up in a small town, in Dallas a long time, but I grew up in a small town, so maybe I'm a little old fashioned. And my town did have a lot of topography, and it was gridded. And I would challenge, let's say, gridded streets doesn't mean that they're car focused. I think you can do that in a way that they're very walkable. I think you have to be mindful of where you want to connect. When I looked at the crossroads with Wheaton, I don't want to call me old fashioned, but I thought, I wish the water feature somehow engaged that crossroad. It seems to be the heart of the site. And, the first thing that came to mind was the town square, where I grew up. That was kind of the place where everything converges. And then it felt like the center, I'm sure there are reasons for that, but it felt like the central focus was south of it. Maybe there's another alternative to look at that as the stop, and maybe that's where the water could also be there, so that everyone seems to kind of have a connection at those four quadrants. Because I did feel like I know it's with the creek being located where it is, I'm sure you're going to have limitations as to how much you can meander that or change or adapt it. But it would be nice if that were more of the central core. I had that in actually opposed to more of that sort of western edge through the single family. And then just, the other thing first, again, connecting, and if you are going to have a school, certainly being able to walk to that school from everywhere, I think is going to be really, really important. So again, that's where I think you want to have the streets connect, and then connecting person, hopefully you have university professors who want to live in the same room, you know, walk up and look. So that, I did struggle beyond that, but I think it's great. I think just stay the course. Those are just some of my initial thoughts. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I would say that we support all of what you just said, the connectivity. I know that our graphic for the area that's to the west on here is, I mean, none of those streets exist. Those are just big chunks
And controls that, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so many people.
And so somebody at some point put some, colored chunks on a diagram and tried to stretch it forward and fit it onto the hours. And so, the intent is to say, we want to connect. We can't design these connections until we know exactly what's going to happen there. And so we try to create opportunities for that. So it wasn't that we were, we just dismissed them. They don't exist yet. And
So you get to lead,
we
you get to lead. They need to be where you tell them. That's right. They have to start responding to you, not
That's right. And so the idea, so we fully support the connection east-west as well from south. And I feel like that's really important. And the development is really focused on trying to do that.
Sure. Real quick question, I think this is for city staff. Looking at this area, to me, it seems like it should be subject to a focus area plan related to the ongoing updates to the comprehensive plan. Is this something that is on that team's radar?
Maybe in very land use general terms, yes, knowing that, the area around a dark station tends to be maybe a little denser, maybe a little more mixed use in terms of its uses. I think that's probably the focus of what we might get out of the comprehensive plan update, with some additional urban design, not necessarily principles, but suggestions, I think, at this point. I think the urban design component part of it will come at a later date. So yeah, it's very general. What we're trying to do better at this time is not having the separation of uses in a lot of areas of town. So I think that's about as complicated as we'll get on it.
Okay, I bring it up because I've been probably over the past 5 years, I've worked with the city of San Antonio, Texas A&M San Antonio. It looks like a very similar situation, and a lot of focus on all the things we're talking about, the pedestrian connectivity. In that particular instance, what we were missing was connection to a light rail station with our light rail. But this has it all. So I would love to see more collaborative kind of digging in on along with DART, along with Dallas Parks and with Dallas Planning to look at further consideration of that longer term multimodal connectivity, not just to the light rail station and the university, but to the south and the 5 Mile Creek. When I see all these things in such a tight grouping, I start to think about funding opportunities for that public infrastructure, for the hike and bike trails, for upgrades to the DART rail, making those connections better. I think that's going to be better for this development. It's going to be better for anyone who lives here. Ideally, students could live there versus driving in and taking the train. That would be amazing, and that's more of a planning consideration there on the land use. So just want to encourage a deeper dive into that because now it's the time to do it. Lots of great opportunities. Another real quick point or question for you, Arthur. I know that Mark Meyer sent a bunch of his comments. Were you going to share those, or?
I was hoping the panel would.
Okay.
If you feel.
I got them pulled up, but I'll get to those in a minute. This it means I'm going to be a little more long-winded with my comments, but I'll make that transition to him. My second recommendation is going back to a combination of that flood risk evaluation. I know that you said that's something that's certainly on the radar. I'm frankly kind of skeptical of the current data in the FEMA mapping of Running Springs Ranch, and I know those are being updated. I feel like the flood risk is probably a lot greater than what's shown on the maps currently. I also believe that Barney Branch needs to be carefully studied, not just related to the flood risk potential, but also the extent of waters of the U.S., which just based on my cursory review, I feel fairly confident that there could be some items related to waters U.S. and protection of these creeks. And even more specifically, outside of federal guidelines, just adherence to the comprehensive environmental and climate action plan, which one of our goals here in the city of Dallas is to protect and preserve our ecosystems, including these riparian corridors. So I would encourage the team and staff to further dig into the environmental inventory, the natural systems inventory of the site. Other panelists have commented on Barney Branch, and let's make this a key feature. And I think the bones of that are here. You're showing NASDAQ bringing it into the town center, et cetera. But I feel like we need to consider the space that is going to be required to let that creek breathe and to protect it and to allow enough space to mitigate the impacts of this is a lot of impervious surface that we're looking at here. To mitigate the water quality impacts of this development, expand the public open space, give you more breathing room to bring in regional trail connectivity, and honestly create a much healthier, much more vibrant walkable space. And the trade-off here is probably going to be density. It always is. And that's why I wanted to bring up the comprehensive planning effort for consideration as well. So, let's see. I think I've covered my comments, and let me pull up Mark's. Mark types a lot. He's very thorough. But I'll actually just read his comments because I don't paraphrase it normally. His first comment is related to the road network. Mark states the plans, road sections call out for context-sensitive roads. However, in the three most identifiable roads, the land uses are not engaging the roads correctly, in my opinion. In a mixed-use walkable neighborhood, all roads would be fronted with architecture, residential to vertical mixed use. Looking at the roads here, there are many conditions in which the roads side, front, and back all within one road and also a cross range road. Made a little translation on that. But I think it's really looking at more of the urban walkable design principles. I think other panelists have commented on. Let's make sure this is engaging our architecture to the streets and walkable environments versus back into the streets, and getting away from traditional subdivision design that we've seen in the past. We know can create some issues. On the open space, comments related to in a mixed-use plan, open space should be the driver to balancing the higher density and offering nature and the ability to get away and take a break. Continues on, I think it's really a continuation or very similar to my previous comments, but he does suggest taking a look at Elmwood Parkway Park along Rugged Creek in Oak Cliff as an example of integrating that natural space with new development. And finally, comment on edges. Edges in the development where development meets a road or open space is a detail in which you can tell if it is a positive relationship or a negative one. In the phase one, the mixed use core has turned its back to the many roads and inward facing instead of outward. On the graphic, there are two critical edges that have placed large parking lots on Wheatland that appear very suburban in context. These parking lots should not be exposed to the roads. Buildings ideally should wrap around the parking lots or move them away from Wheatland. Again, I think this is just really taking a closer look at making this more pedestrian friendly, urban walkable context about it. Hopefully that summarized.
Good.
Good.
Very good comments, Mike. And please thank Mike, Mike Mayer for us. Okay. Any other comments?
I forgot to.
You forgot.
Yeah.
You still have time. Go ahead.
Regarding parking, I did want to ask a question. Did you explore or centralize parking structures to avoid some of those surface lots, key areas? Mark mentioned.
I think that's, we use it in a couple different ways, but,
I think it's possible, so the idea is that, you know, if we get this, at least in the commercial area, if we get phase one right, then what the subsequent, like phase one B, the market's gonna drive that, and that's gonna help us define that. It's our intent that, we would like to be able to certainly use for these large, multifamily with ground floor retail, you know, we are showing parking garage embedded in that. So the intent is for the public to use a portion of that. And so, yeah, we're not opposed to the big centralized parking structure. I think the market is good, the commercial market is going to help drive that decision.
Yeah, if you had a driving model come off the lot, you would be going through a lot of surface lots there. My other thought was, and I forgot to mention earlier, I think Michael touched on it, agency coordination. I thought about, do you have a rep that's working with you on?
So we've had kind of high level, but I love the feedback. I think that absolutely is something that we want to do more of is coordinating with DART. I mean, we've had several talks about possibility and long-term with their station, the universities, particularly close with, of course, having run a station, they want to do it. Village situation around it as well, so,
A lot of us too, into the site where, because you're gonna have workforce, will need to access certain buses, certain.
Well, one of the things that we wanting to get that at great connection would be a tram that would run from the university into this area.
Okay.
So we already had talks about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't forget him, I just hadn't thought of this.
Yes.
No, and it's more thoughts, maybe you call it guidance, because I had been struggling a little bit with what this is. We have I see lots of undeveloped lands, and I guess by the time in the back you get to this development around relatively new university campus. Gets me to thinking about places I've seen where universities were the center of the growth of the community, or part of the community. Where I went to school, the main street of the city runs straight up into the front door of the main building of the university. I was in Alpine last weekend, as I made reference earlier, and the same thing happens. The main streets of Alpine run right into Solo University. It's more complicated here because of urban patterns and the fact that we have a DART line, which is, if there was ever a barrier in the world, a DART line is one of them. And yet, it strikes me that as an example, as a pioneer in the development of redevelopment of the southern sector, I suppose focusing on UNT Dallas because we've made a lot of references to UNT Dallas, and I suspect that's the engine generating what's making this a popular place to spend money to redevelop. What's that relationship like? And we talked about it, but you can't see it on the drawings. I really wonder if even in the DART line area, routing single family residential that way and putting the commercial type development on the other end, I guess most of it more accessible to the Cleveland Road, is that we responding really to the university for any way except financially? Are we, what example are we setting for future development? What inspiration are we providing them? And are we consciously getting away from that idea that the urban center is really up where the academic center is? The rest is response to that. And I'm not expecting an answer. I'm just saying for thoughts going forward, I wonder if this is the relationship that you want and if this is the relationship we like others to perhaps emulate what established.
Good feedback. I'm having a little bit of share what our conversation with the university. So we've actually done a bunch of studies about having the town center here instead of there.
Yeah.
But and we kind of incorporated an element that would have like a mini hub, if you will, that kind of ties a little more with the university. The thing is, they have their master, right? And I think it's an evolving. It's not built on here. Not only white things here, but so I think that'll evolve. But what they've kind of programmed along this edge is more of that kind of green space forested, even with their long-term master. So having like all of this sort of right here doesn't, I don't know, there's some challenge, but I think, we'd love to see connections going across here. There's parkland, it has all sorts of challenges, also love the landowners there that, has challenges, but I think we've kind of designed that road to hopefully one day make connections. I think, these kind of connections are coming in here, circulators, trails, things that, I think those are as close as they are, there is a separation, the dark field, et cetera. But, I think it's very good. So we'll continue.
All right. Some good examples of how to make that road affordable for us. Look to Caltrain, south of San Francisco, San Jose, San Carlos. They've done some really nice things where people cross under tracks and safe.
But you see, yeah, I mean, we looked at bridges going across, connecting to, this roadway. We looked at tunnels going across, we looked at a whole variety of things. So when they look at kind of some moving up to here, but what Arthur's saying is absolutely correct. Their long-term master plans have this here, and then separated by open green space. And so having the town center here doesn't really support that vision.
So what does is you've got your natural, beautiful green
Yeah.
space running up next to it.
Yeah,
And instead of multiplying the effect of that green space on the other side of the dart track and having the dart track being, farther down, over here, to the west. Instead of mimicking, instead of reflecting that same kind of treatment on the other side of the dart track and allowing your creek feature to supplement it, you used a lot of parking lots, buildings in there. See, that looks like an opportunity to me to multiply the effect of the
Yeah,
green
I-
space that's already planned.
I had that same thought. I wondered if there could be a similar symmetrical type of condition on the other side of the dark rail, so that, you're doubling the effect of that green space.
It actually is. I mean, again, we drew this here as an overture to the university. They own that land, so it really will be a green space on the other side of the dark. Unless they decide to do something like this.
This is more driven by the university.
Right.
But you're talking to them. And you could say, well, if you do this here, we're gonna do this here, they might actually work with you.
And I think the comment about density is a really key one, because I think that is what is making, for me, a lot of the hesitation is this incredibly suburban feel with all the single family, I mean, it's, again, I think that everybody understands master plan, these are largely symbolic at this point. But I think any kind of graphic gesture to show that this could become a denser space to maximize that green space, because I have the same reaction that everybody, you look at these beautiful photographs of just green, and we understand that this is going to be developed, but it feels like you could take this condition and put it anywhere. And so how can we be more responsive to this beautiful condition and site that you have that will only make it more marketable in the end if people feel like they're really plugged in from the beginning to those features, because it's so gorgeous. And so I think that is mainly what I'm reacting to, and can it become a little outside the box from the get-go, even just graphically representing something that's a little bit denser.
And I think there's a high potential of a big win for the university and a big win for the developer if we have those conversations now about that pedestrian connectivity across the Dart Rail. Because I'll tell you from my experience with our race grant application on 5 Mile Creek, our biggest obstacle is where we have at-grade crossings. not necessarily Dart rail, but rail in general. And I know that Dart is going to be pushing back over any new pedestrian crossings. So if there is a way to have everyone at the table to talk about what is our potential to create a connection from the university and the park into this development, I think that may, bring up more opportunities for potentially denser development, more efficient development, and that continues to filter out into the overall down to phase one.
And I would, maybe I live in a bubble, but I think it would be highly desirable. I think that it would be but that's just me, I want to share.
Yeah, certainly we appreciate your comments. I do, I will say, the agreement with the city was to have a certain number of single family homes and a certain number of single homes and a certain number of multifamily units in phase one.
Yes.
And so in order to comply to that for phase one, we kind of get that.
So that agreement came before planning or after planning or
We did.
in parallel?
We did an initial plan and then, Arthur spent months negotiating with the city about that. And so the initial plan had, there's an earmark for single family, it's not multifamily for phase one. And so we were close to that and then Arthur spent, several months negotiating with the city and then they made a final contract.
I would say the message is very happy with the community, we want to see more housing in the area, quality housing, new housing, so that was an area for us.
Yeah.
to invest in.
All right. So, Arthur, Michael, you got a lot of very good feedback.
Yes.
I don't know if I can add much, but we can try to wrap it up and add a couple comments of mine. If you don't mind, having both boards, yes, thank you, that's good, because that's the overall plan, that's the overall plan, this is focused on the development. So, listening to my colleagues, listening to you, reading what you shared with us for today. So, what we have here, we have a situation where some things are given like one. Interstate is a given, Wheatland is a given, and Dart line is a given. Okay. Then we have the creek, which is also a given. Everything else is we are designing.
Right,
We are
that's correct.
Okay. So with the beautiful pictures of this site, we discussed, you told us about how beautiful it is, the topography, yes, it's not flat, wonderful, we have water, wonderful. We have diverse, we have a wonderful neighbor over here, the university, we have Wheatland that is at the crossroad, Interstate 20 doesn't affect as much, it's down to the south, okay? Does this respond, does this plan capture all the potential that we have been given? And I think that's what our panel here is struggling. I heard the word suburban more than once here on our side, and I have to agree with that. And then you say, well, it is suburban. Guess what? It is suburban. It's not that this is not downtown. True, but at the same time, I think there is a desire to create a town center, a node, a focal point, which is not suburban. So it seems that we have to clarify what do we want to be. I suspect we want to have a sense of place. Who doesn't, right? Especially if we are close to UNT, to the campus. We have a core here. Supposedly there will be another core here. We have Jefferson. So we have a node. This is the academic node. This is another urban node. And here we have somewhere in our plan another node. And the idea would be to integrate these nodes. And then we have park. Very good. So to integrate, connect, we don't need to necessarily extend all of these equally to there and nor that. Of course, it's not going to come this way, but we have nodes. And connecting the nodes becomes free. So are we doing that? Are we creating the conditions for those nodes, well, for our nodes to flourish? I question that. I question. Again, let's look at this detail here. Wheatland and this new road that we are creating. Do we have a name for the new road? Just call it new road, the north-south road. At that very intersection there, what we have We have a parking lot. The back of these buildings is in a parking lot. We have one mixed-use building. Am I right? Mixed use. We have this side hotel. We have the side of a single family, and over here townhome. So the side of a townhome, the side of a single family, parking lot, and a hotel. Does this create? This is the 100% corner, as they say. Is this what one would expect? If I'm driving on Wheatland, I might cross all of our development here, not even realize that I'm there, except for this moment here, which is unique. So the question is, should we take this and maybe bring it closer to that 100% corner? This has good potential, but I'm not sure that it has all the critical mass that's necessary to truly make it a town center. We have a mixed use, multifamily, and office. Is this enough? Do we have enough density? Do we have enough scale to make this a town center that it wants to be? Could this benefit from being closer to that intersection? And could it all come together with the natural feature of the site? We know that this is the high point. It slopes down that way. Could this plus that come together at the node? Right now, there is one block this way, half a block that way. They are very close to each other, but they really don't touch. They don't really overlap. In other words, we don't have a lot to work with. We have not a lot of programs. Could we bring whatever we have closer together to create an impact, the memorable impact? I am concerned, Michael and Arthur, that phase one, only half of this will be built in phase one, and it's sort of on the back foot of all of that. So this is phase one, and then, there's also the town park over here, but the town park sort of is disconnected from the rest of it. I am concerned that one is not helping the other in phase one. Phase one, you need to set the tone, and I'm not sure that we are setting the tone, that you are setting the tone for the future success of the plan with phase one. It seems that this is the critical node I suggest we take another look. Finally, the edges along the creek over here, the use and the geometry, the treatment of the edges of the creek. We all have seen successful situations similar to this and unsuccessful. The successful situations are where you have public access. This is a public amenity. So public access, the edges are public land. You have spots for contemplation, picnic, play, etc. I'm not sure that's happening here. This is the backyard. These are backyards of single-family homes. Same thing here. This is one side of the road. Do we have enough land over there? This seems to indicate a park, but behind the park is again the backyards of single-family homes. There isn't a consistent treatment of the edges of the creek. Is that by design? If so, please tell us how it works. If not, what is the idea for this zone? Again, perhaps the most striking feature of this site is right there. And how are you treating it? Is it going to be accessible to everybody? Is it going to be the hallmark? Can it be the hallmark? Can it become the natural feature plus the potential of a 100% corner? Are we using those two elements, those two components to our advantage? Open questions. I don't know what the answers are, but I'd like you to, as you go back to your drafting table, to your spreadsheet, please take a look at that. We want you to succeed. Development in South Dallas is always welcome. UNT, 20 years ago, it was a pipe dream. Now it's there. Wonderful. Sure, it deserves a neighbor like you're planning, but have we captured all the potential? That's what I'd like to ask you to ask yourself.
Rico, can I borrow your laser pointer?
Yes.
I'm sorry, just one quick comment. Just to clarify, I was talking about Barney Branch earlier, and I just wanted to point out exactly where this is Barney Branch here.
Okay.
And then Running Springs here. This is an unnamed tributary.
Okay.
And best I can tell, the headwaters are really I-20. This is the one that extends further across 20. But starting here needs to be evaluated to where the detention pond is and then through here. So it's just as significant, it's not as big of a watershed. This water feature here, it looks like it's a water feature, I'm not 100% certain. One thing to look at there is water balance. I'm not convinced there's gonna be enough runoff coming to that to sustain water there without considering supplementing with well water. So you may take a closer look at that as well, because that could be a considerable expense if you have to start thinking about wells. Sure. So thanks for the laser pointer.
Okay. Never remember to bring mine. I have one, that's good.
Michael, Arthur, anything else that you'd like to know, any feedback? Have we helped you?
Sure. No, I think all of you guys been very,
We wanted you to succeed. So, and we want to share, our goal is to share our feedback with you, so you can incorporate it, if you think it's appropriate, into the planning and have a better chance of success. Win-win, as it's.
We really appreciate this feedback and taking your time volunteering and being here. Means a lot.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we say once again, Mr. Chairman, that none of us we had a part
Thank you. I tried,
Good try.
Mark's comments are somewhat sprinkled in most of these. I'll go back and make sure that his main comments are when we finish today. But I'll go ahead and make the recommendation now. These will be shared with Arthur and his team later, and we'll work back and forth on these. The first recommendation, the panel advises at this stage of site planning, the development team respond to and capitalize on opportunities for sites, vistas, and street layout patterns afforded by the existing topography, creeks, and natural beauty of the site. Number two, the panel suggests the beautiful natural feature of the site be considered as a major feature of the plan. I think that one might be tied into the one.
Can you say it quietly?
Number three, the panel recommends additional thought be given to the garden park district and focus given to reducing block sizes and improving opportunities for walkability. Four, actually this will be three, the panel recommends greater pedestrian engagement and access to the parks and open spaces, Central Square, and across the DART track to open space and hike and bike trails within the UNT campus. I'll make that a better paragraph or sentence. Number four, the panel advises additional focus be given to ensuring connections are possible to UNT DART and the future community civic amenities. Again, I think I can combine the previous one and this one and add the note about future community access within the site. Number five, the panel advises closer study of future flood risk potential, natural system inventory, and conformance with CCAP goals. That was hard to condense everything you said, so Michael, let me know if I missed a key point there. You mentioned
I think that,
USG.
that's covered, and you understand the points made there.
Okay. Number six, the panel recommends closer attention be given to matching proposed road section typologies and how buildings and parking facilities front and address them to establish a more walkable development. That may also include consolidation of surface parking where possible, consolidation of surface parking into structured parking where possible. The panel advises, this is number seven, the panel advises further study be given to how development responds to UNT Dallas growth plans and if the master plan sets the most optimal development pattern for this development and future growth of the area. Number eight, the panel recommends the master plan maximize opportunities to integrate identifiable development nodes, open space, density, and natural features of the site, along with a phasing strategy that allows the first phase to stand on its own while setting up future growth success. And lastly, number 9, the panel advises thought be given to how development addresses the creeks in a consistent manner that can elevate the potential for recreation, access, and overall success of the development. I'll mention something there about edges in that last comment. That's a key point.
That was impressive.
That's one.
That's why you do that. Good here.
Very good. Thank you for sending that. Michael, Arthur, thank you again.
Thank you.
Great job. And please come back if you want us to look at.
Bring that back, even show one.
Yeah, maybe it's. Yeah. Yeah, you had it. I'm like.
They know. They don't. Exactly. Yeah, so,
Wow. I think it's all hard times.
well, and then if you ask me, meet in the fight, and then I'm going to see whoever is selected down to the and so the winner will be.
Apartment complex.
Exactly, well, and so, but it's not about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is like there's still. Yeah, I think. The Dallas. He's right next to the gallery.
Yeah.
We met with they hang by.
Yeah.
And this person only owns one, like originally there was a big group that owned all the parcels and now it owns all those. But it's weird because it's like right in the middle of the metro. It's so weird that that's not. Yeah, because I think there were plans for like skyscraper type, like large.
She said,
It's.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yes. IT is.
Yeah.
Did y'all work with it then, or you had to create that environment?
Yeah, the string system of water.
I mean, before. So you had to really.
The version of turbo.
I got you.
Lucky to have it.
Part of what we unanticipated this area. I think everything the city, which was like, wow. Wow.
Yes, okay.
Obviously,
Kate,
That's.
it's not easy to do.
Oh, hello again. Good to see you. Good to see you too. It's only been like 6 weeks.
I believe we put that to be.
of course, yeah, and I don't want to steal Peter's thunder, I'm just gonna say a couple words. Obviously, this next project's located, very familiar to you guys. The newest Redbird development, high quality, brings a high quality grocery and pharmacy, plus roughly an additional 31,000 square feet of retail space to help meet the needs of the community. 2 major utility easements, an existing internal road network, and grocery program requirements dictated building placement on the site. Design considerations and focus on softening the appearance of the parking lot and reducing its environmental impact, along with building and site design strategies to ensure a vibrant pedestrian experience. With all that, I'll leave it off to Peter to give you additional detail on the site and the project.
Great, well, thanks everyone. I appreciate everyone flying in this morning from their Colorado vacations. Be back in the.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we've got a whole team here, architecture, civil, Terrence, for developer, David Harmon from Tom Thumb. Everyone will, I'm sure, have a chance to speak. I'll let them introduce themselves. So I'm not going to talk at all about Redbird. You know the story. I want to talk about this site in particular. And Arturo alluded to some of the issues. This was an extremely difficult site to figure out how to make work. The first thing I want to say is that in the city's work with Tom Thumb looked at a lot of sites in southern Dallas, and the place they wanted to be was Redbird. Within Redbird, the only site that made sense for them was this site. So when you see some awkward placement, it's really because the positioning of the site, the size of it, the proximity to Camp Wisdom, the visibility to the corner, those were all things, the access from the streets, those were all things that were really important to Tom Thumb. And despite the fact that it is a pie-shaped site with a storm, with a box culvert, storm sewer going through diagonally through the site, it made it very awkward. Over the last 8 years, we have looked at least 5 or 6 times at what it would cost to dig up and relocate that infrastructure, and it's in the millions. And it's not financially feasible. The increase in value of the land would be significantly less than the cost of doing it. And so we have to live with that. And so that is why literally the only place on the site that you can fit a 50,000 square foot building is right there, sandwiched in between the ring road and the storm drain. So that's really what dictated everything. Now, in order to make this financially viable, because everybody knows nobody makes money on grocery, it's a loss leader for the other retail. And the economics of this deal are tight. Tom Thumb, I could not applaud them more for doing this, but there's trepidation about putting this level of a grocery store, you know, in southern Dallas. I personally think they're gonna make a killing, but there's no model that's gonna tell them that. And so, you know, we're maxed out on rent. The city obviously gave a huge subsidy, incentive to make their numbers work. And so the economics are very tight, particularly in a high interest rate, low loan to value, high construction cost environment. And so our goal, once we placed the grocery store, was to absolutely maximize the square footage of marketable retail. And we have looked at every permutation of site plan to figure out how to do that while still honoring the needs that Tom Thumb has for a large parking field directly in front and services in the back and parking spaces for trucks and all of the other things. The one thing I will say about Tom Thumb is that we are always concerned about tenants kind of dumbing down their product and not making it as Class A in this community as they make in other communities. And I can guarantee that is not happening here. They've been painful to work with because they're sticking to their standards so stringently, which is what we want. It's going to be a beautiful looking store, and it's going to look like every other Tom Thumb in every other community, which is exactly what this community wants. So we've been, you know, through this process with you all enough to know what your careabouts are. We have the same careabouts. In some places, you know, for instance, we talked a lot about permeable materials, and you know, the answer was we can't have a bumpy ground for shopping carts. That kills permeable materials, at least on the bulk of the site. So I just want to say that we have worked very hard to anticipate what, you know, your concerns are going to be. And so you may hear a lot of, we thought of that and here's why we didn't do it. We still welcome all your comments, all your feedback. This is one of those sites that just like, we can't even move the building a foot without, you know, I mean, we have to squeeze in. So
we understand
okay.
the constraints of the site constraints, the financial constraints, the schedule constraints, and everything else. We understand.
Great.
Question for you.
Sure.
And before I start,
and I was gonna
yes, but and before you, I said this during our previous presentation. I know if you were here, if you were, or we repeat. We are all volunteers. You know that we are all volunteers. You have here the panel, collection of historic preservation experts, landscape architects, engineers, architects, urban planners, and our goal is to make a better city, to provide feedback, to develop and design things so we have better Dallas. That's what we are here for. We're not paid by the city, we're volunteers, and our feedback tends to be frank, open, because again, we are not tied with anybody. We know that our feedback has been positive in the past, so much so that your peers, they ask to come back for a second and sometimes even a third review. So that's what we do. We do it all in an open spirit, with hoping that our feedback is constructive. With that, we will have we'll have questions for you, and then we provide feedback.
Perfect.
Good.
And you've given us some great feedback in the past, and particularly on the last site,
Yes.
the movie traded, the geometry site. We took a lot of those ideas and incorporated them
Wonderful.
here. So we share all your goals, but I also just wanted to kind of set the table.
Yes.
So with that,
Because you may be helpful just to show, you know, what's existing, you know, adjacent, the multifamily in the West Wing that we may be coming in for.
well, we've already come in for the West Wing. So you guys have reviewed this right across the street.
Yeah.
And we owe you a response on that. You know Palladium. these buildings don't actually exist. There's still a fire zone right there. Unfortunately, they have a really favorable lease for them for another 9 years. Right now, this is just 9 acres.
So, Peter, are we reviewing, this is not done,
Yes,
are we reviewing,
yes, you're reviewing the entire.
what is this and what is this?
These are these are retail buildings. When I talked earlier about maximizing, ancillary retail space, that's 31,000 square feet of ancillary retail space.
Very good. Very good.
That
Okay.
really make the project feasible.
Thank you.
So I'll turn it over to Lisa Swift.
Hi, this is Swift with GSO Architects. We're responsible for the architecture on, the Sundown retail buildings. As we kind of look at the. Everyone. As we look at the site, we are bounded on all 4 roads with the, is that the, I forget the official name, the healthy,
Oh, the wellness trail.
wellness trail. So the wellness trail bounds our site. As we're looking at Investor Drive across the street from the Palladium, we have on-street parking and parallel parks that kind of mirror the existing parallel parks for Palladium. All of our buildings are connected up with the Tom Thumb and in terms of a walkable path, and then we just recently added a new path to be able to get from the main entrance of Palladium to make sure that, this important connection, you've got residential and a grocery store, you need to make sure that they can get to one another easily. From an architecture standpoint, Tom Thumb's got a really great prototype, it's brand new, they've got a lot of large glass entry at the front. Part of their concept also has drive-up pickup lanes across the front, which really serve the needs of all sorts of. It's where everything's going. It makes this a very convenient store. That's the drive-up and go here. The overall materials are masonry and the accent wood. It's not a wood product, but it's a wood look product that has a really durable life. And so for the retail buildings, we've played off of the colors and materials. We're still bringing in the dark red and black brick that we've already kind of established on Redbird in the Starbucks and in the Moving Trading Company building, and mixing that with the colors and materials of Tom Thumb, adding a little bit of their wood product throughout on these elevations. As we're kind of looking at the site plan, our main storefronts are facing into the overall center. It's on the 10,000 square foot building. We've got storefronts here. We've got a patio feature planned for the corner. Hopefully, we'd love to see a restaurant on that corner. Nothing is leased right now, so I can't really say what's happening, but the idea is that there's a nice landscape edge, and that would kind of activate the sidewalk with patio space there. There is I'm fighting for there's at least 15 feet of sidewalk in front of the whole building. So anywhere that we have a small restaurant, even a yogurt shop, we have some room to make sure that we can put patio seating out there. We've got a curved walkway for a portion of this 20,000 square foot building. The 20,000 has the storefront all along the front, and then this is more of a service area. We've worked to kind of dress up the rears that face the street. This is not as much because we've got a lot of room for landscaping and screening on that parcel. And one of the important things I want to mention about the building B up here is we planned a rear service corridor in this building, which is not typical for standard strip retail, but we feel like along this frontage, it helps us clean it up a lot. We're going to keep the utilities off that frontage, and all we'll have is a single door here that exits the service corridor, and then everything else kind of utility wise will be back in this area, screened by the dumpster enclosure, and I'm hoping to add additional screening to, you know, like stretch the dumpster enclosure to, give us more room for the utilities. We haven't gone through and figured out exactly what the transformers and electrical is all coming to, but the goal is to keep this building really clean and not have all that junk that you typically see on the back of a retail building.
Lisa, you may want to mention too, they may not be able to tell, but on the rear of the top about where the screen wall is.
So, yeah, the Tom Thumb docks are, on this end of the building, there's a screen wall completely screening those, and then there, the compactor has an enclosure as well on the other side.
And then the other thing is that there's AT&T switch gear that's right in front of the Tom Thumb, that's why that sort of jumps around it.
Yeah, Dunaway's done a magical job of making that, switchgear work in the main, entry and being able to save it, but then it's really not that tall, it's really just all the lines coming to and from it, so it, you know, it's gonna look like a nice landscape, feature as you come into
The lines coming into it, are they above ground?
No, it's underground.
It's unmovable because
I understand it's like, we gas and bring it, but we're not drawing to, what is it? Is it a green box?
Green box.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the line thing's scary.
Yeah.
Old thing.
But when you still, you know, when I'm looking at the civil site plan and seeing all the, you know, easements that jump into it, and you know, on Google Earth, you know, it's just like, wow.
You had me there with it. Thank you.
What else have I missed? Chris, do you have any?
the only thing I would add is that the parking to the south is mostly going to be used to serve West Wing. And we wanted to retain that parking because while there is parking that serves just the West Wing, this is directly across the street, and so we wanted to add some convenient parking.
Which parking is that?
It's that thin strip.
It's there.
Okay.
Sorry, missed your name.
Lisa.
Lisa, do you mind sliding the land to the side so we can see both lands at once? Thank you. Very good, thank you. All right. Anything else that you would like to share with us, or that covered it?
I think.
Okay, very good. Questions for Lisa and people? Yes,
Just briefly, though, okay, for things like this, we always ask this, how are you for parking? Yeah, just exactly the amount we need, can't spare a single one.
Well,
we have a little bit.
We have, it depends.
Right, I mean, this is.
So, this parking is a little extra, but it's not used for this.
Yeah.
And we need it for the West Wing.
Okay.
The parking up here, we need it at every spot, because Tom Thumb has a 5,000 requirement, so that's 250 spaces, and then we have 30,000 square feet of retail.
If there's any place I go that I actually, have trouble finding parking spaces every time I go. So, I get that.
There's one thing I did forget to mention, there's EV spaces, in this
Yes.
corner. How many chargers? 5, 4?
all right. But yeah.
Lisa, you mentioned that the block B is connected from a pedestrian standpoint to where it comes on the other utilities. Is that along the perimeter? Or is
Yes, it connects, through the perimeter, there's not a direct straight through the parking lot, we're just so tight. We looked at that.
Michael.
Could you point out the pedestrian connectivity from the south? My question is related to how is that separated from where we're gonna have truck traffic coming in and out?
So the pedestrian connectivity, here's kind of the main, courtyard entrance for Palladium, and then this comes right across Industrial Drive, comes up the side of Tom Thumb. So it should be there may be a truck every once in a while coming across, coming out, but, you know, that's, gonna be a well-marked pedestrian path, and it's far enough that it's out of their way of the general, maneuvering.
And there are no issues, I'm certain, with ADA accessibility between the store and the multifamily.
Correct. I mean, we haven't fully graded it out yet, but we will.
Right. What's relevant?
Yes,
Yeah. Follow-up question to Marcus. Why have we elected that road and not, here along?
There's both.
Oh, there's both.
There's both, but looking at it, just deciding, you know, this is some, you know, people are coming out of their apartments on this facade, we need an additional.
Very good, okay, thanks. Any other question?
The other question I had was, but you answered it, was about the AT&T switch gear. So I appreciate you putting on that.
Sorry, can you clarify, can you point out again the switch gear?
This is the switch gear. Originally, the idea was that this would just be a straight, you know, regular road, and we kind of curved it around to make sure it was the two-way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a nice, it'll be, no one will know it's switchgear, they'll think it's a nice lush landscaping feature.
Why not?
it's hard.
Minimal is more.
Very good. Any other questions?
Those are your site constraints, both of those easements, right? And those are probably the largest.
These easements and this,
Yeah.
One additional question, on the east side, the two major streets, driveways, will those be four-way stops, or are there any kind of,
on the east side.
four-way rather than that corner?
Here?
The two major intersections.
Yes.
Drives.
Yeah, they're four-way streets.
One right there, drive, that goes up to, bases.
Yeah, those are four-way stops. Because this is a major pedestrian access point, there's sidewalks, you have the lawn right over here.
Great, thank you.
All right, shall we change to the comments and feedback now? Good. Usually I like to go last, I just like to be, my peer in the panel chance to speak first, but I would have to leave in 20 minutes or just under 20 minutes, so I'd like to share my feedback with you just in case we run long.
Well, we always steal your thunder.
Oh, yeah.
Because you deserve.
That's why, I know. Okay, thank you for coming back again. Everybody watches what's going on at Redbird, everybody talks about it. Great, keep going, keep pushing, we applaud you. So we know each other, let's go straight to the issue. I'm concerned.
Okay.
So what I see, and I have a diagram here, but let me replicate that diagram on your plan. What I see is first Redbird with ancillary uses around it. This is the core. And what you either have been establishing from the beginning is the corridors that takes us from the outside from the perimeter into core. So that's one that is very strong. I believe that was the first one, if I recall. Followed by this is the clinic, correct?
Correct.
Which has a corridor from the perimeter. So we have one, like so, two, like so, and three with the housing and West Wing that we reviewed not long ago. 1, 2, 3, very clear diagram. What this is starting to do is starting to take that, starting to take the old Redbird and humanize, give it scale. It is no longer a building in a sea of parking lots. It is a building that has been tamed, so to speak, and made civilized. Wonderful. What I see, the missed opportunity that I see with this quadrant here is that building. That's why I asked you, is this part of the review today? And you said yes. So I really think that the overall plan would be enhanced, strongly enhanced, if this building was brought closer to this road here. In the same way that the two residential buildings are fronting this road, and I can't remember its name, the name of the road, but if this building comes closer, take its same shape, same configuration, just drop it close to the edge of the building. What we have, if we do that, we have a road that starts here at the regular intersection, by the way, signal light intersection is here, it's not there. So we take this one and we make that a strong connector to the core. Here it ends at a T intersection, just like this one and just like that one, by the way. That becomes stronger. Second, I don't know if this is possible. I will take that one over there and I will drop it right here. This is maybe outside of our scope, your scope, Peter, but why would we do that? Again, to enhance, to strengthen that connector over here. Here we have linear park with buildings on both sides, with users on both sides. It's missing. We have 1, 2, 3, and the fourth corner is missing. So maybe that comes here. If that's not possible, well, have a duplicate placed over here. I know it's outside of our scope. So
The whole thing's on the table.
Great.
It's back here so often.
great. So that is a missing tooth right there. That one, I don't know what it's doing for us. This is a signalized intersection, clearly a connector. That one, sure, but it's a minor connector. This is more important than that. This is more important than that. So let us take what is important. Let's strengthen those. This, and that is already on its way. Finally, I understand downtown needs a front door to the large parking lot. Obvious, great. I wonder, it would be ideal, I don't think it's possible, it would be ideal if the front door would face this road here. And I know, Lisa, you say it's not possible because all of our parking, the majority of the parking is on that side. We can't have front door here and park on the back. Okay, all right, if that's the answer, I anticipate it is. If that's the answer, at least let us screen the loading dock here. It's never been. TomTom usually does a good job of screening loading docks. And right now, it's not so. If I drive on this road here, I will see that loading dock. If I park here, that's fully exposed. Let us make an effort. Screen, walls, landscape, medians, whatever it takes. Because again, this is one of your 3 major entrance doors to Redbird. You don't want to enter the place. Oh, that's the loading dock of TomTom. Where's the front door? I don't know, but that's the loading dock. So that's not good. Good. So in a nutshell, that's what I would like to offer to you.
Okay, may I,
Please.
let's engage in dialogue. So on the first thing, nothing would make me happier than to move this building down.
Okay.
And in fact, we wouldn't keep it the same shape. We would significantly increase it.
All right.
Would very much improve the economics.
Yes.
The problem is that I've been advised by leasing experts, including that one, that would be unleasable. That what makes the retail attractive is that it is right next to and accessible from and visible from the grocery store.
Yes. Who's the leading expert? You are. Yeah, but to contradict what we just heard, look at that. This has a front and a back. Look at that. This is on the edge of the street. Look at that. That's on the edge of the street. And supposedly they are all successful. That's what I'm asking. That same condition, this same condition to happen here.
So-
Here we have parking on both sides. Here we have parking on one side, parking on one side, parking on one side.
So
And following precedent.
okay. This is not done yet, and this is not done yet. The
Hopefully it will be done.
hopefully it will be. It is challenging. One of the challenges we're having with this is that the parking is behind. People see that the Foot Locker did it, and they're really surprised. Now they really want it to be on the lawn, and they activate the lawn a lot.
Yeah.
And so we're assuming eventually that restaurants will be so attracted by the patio and
Yes.
the lawn that they'll get over it.
Exactly.
This was designed, this is meant to be, where we had been in conversations when this was drawn to move Burlington to here. And then this is basically another situation where the retail is, sort of drafting off of the Burlington anchor. If you just have retail here by itself, there's really no anchor. Because the grocery store, basically the retail is basically at the back of house, it's barely visible.
I understand. Would there be a way to shape this building, not necessarily making it larger, but to shape it so that we capture the pedestrian flow generated by Tom Thumb, and as it cascades down this way, it also energizes, activates the building.
Peter, if I can, too, just a couple of things that may not be shown. So on this west wing, we have a fitness concept coming in here, which is a heavy parking use too.
Yeah.
So pushing the building up slightly solves for two things. It makes that retail a lot more leasable and attractive for tenants to get the higher rents. And then secondly, you create an additional sort of parking field that really helps. Because this parking, although it's close, is not the most convenient to the west wing.
It's always going to be used by this user.
I don't mean to be stubborn, but I understand. Everybody wants to park at the front door, everybody. But that's not what will make this place, that's not what's making Redbird successful. Redbird is generating buzz because you guys are thinking different. And if we fall back, you're gonna have my building with parking, another building with parking, another building with parking. What is that? Collection of boxes with parking around. That's not what you guys are after, I think. That's not what we have been doing. So if we fall back on that thinking, we are risking success. So just to wrap it up, are tenants coming here to this place, to this special place, because I can get parking right at my door, or because there's buzz about Redbird and it's different, it's special. And if I have to walk 40 extra feet, it's worth it.
We have not gotten to the point yet where the buzz of Redbird overcomes the stigma of Southern Dallas. And so we are still at a position where tenants want it to be, like, if they're gonna do it, it's gotta be perfect. And we haven't gotten to a point where a tenant says, I'm so dying to get to Redbird that I'm willing to stray from my typical prototype. They are saying, if you twist my arm and I get an incentive and this and that and it's perfect and you provide extra security and the parking's exactly where I want it, then I will deign to come. It's gotten a lot better over the last 8 years because it used to be there, right? And now people are coming, but I wish we were at the point where we could say, hey, if you want to come, this is the price. You're not going to have perfect parking. But can I respond to a couple other things you said? Please. So the only reason for this building is financial, that we really need at least 30,000 of retail to make it work. And this is really the only place that we could put it. I was not happy about its having its back directly to the street, but it's the only place on this site where we can put it where it's viable and doesn't screw up the grocery store's visibility or their parking. With regard to this, so the building right now is a square. One of the issues that we've had leasing this building is what I just said, which is that we took up all their parking with this. And so in order to attract a retailer that we're in conversation with, we're planning on demolishing this part of the building and creating a front entrance right there, again, so that they can have their parking right in front. And that's a very costly and counterproductive exercise for us because we're spending money to reduce GLA. But we've been trying to lease that building actively. It's the front door of the building. And we finally figured out that the only way to do it was to face it this way to a captive field of parking. And that's why we wouldn't put a building there.
I understand. are you still maintaining that, a section of that lawn?
Yeah.
Is that what I see?
Yes, we want, I mean, very candidly, if I could roll back the clock, I would have demolished this building. I would have demolished it, I would have had the lawn much closer, it would have been a direct connection into the mall.
Right.
And there were reasons for the decision at the time, but when I look at the development, you know, it's like I built a house, I look at the electrical outlet and wish it were over here. I wish we had kept the west wing and demolished the Macy's, but we didn't. And so in order to make up, you know, in order to acknowledge the fact that you don't want to go from a lawn to a parking lot into this, we do plan to keep kind of a green island
Yes.
where people can walk and at least as a nod towards what I wish we'd done.
All right,
I have a piggyback to your question.
please, Jen, I will excuse myself, I need to leave now.
Thank you.
Norman, James, Maria, Michael, they're all wonderful.
I was gonna
Okay, chat with you all.
your pointer.
Yes.
Enjoy your flight back to Colorado.
Right.
Right.
Did you all explore, what if the Tom Thumb from here, facing with a smaller front door that's accessible to residential, primary front door there? And I'm thinking kind of more of a walk-up street frontage there. Is there an issue with having it at that corner? Because I had the same concern, I feel like that corner would be great for that corner to have more of an urban edge.
So we actually recently created that exact site plan, and it was not approved by Tom Thumb. Really, it's too far back from Camp Wisdom. The thing that drives them, not to speak for you, David, but to speak for you, the thing that drives them is the visibility from Camp Wisdom. That was too far back. And this would have been back of house right on the street. There's no way that Tom Thumb would agree to have their back to Camp Wisdom and face this street. It was that was a not, it wasn't even a discussion.
While you're at it, James, any other comment?
No, those are my primary comments. Yeah.
Okay.
Michael, you good, jump in? So I'm not gonna talk about Pringles fans, I understand. I understand the complexity, but honestly, you know, I would rather see more green features that are trying to accomplish filtration. All of this is on top of clay, so it makes that very challenging. One thing that I would like to take a look at is some of the landscape islands, particularly the ones that are in close proximity to the box culverts. Knowing that there's no way we're going to be able to put a lot of bioretention cells and everything, and where we're going to be able to treat all the water quality for this. But I'm thinking along the lines of, given that some of those islands are just so close to the box culverts, there may be potential, depending on how the grading works out, to create a few of those as more of the parking lot bioretention cells. Knowing that we're not going to be able to treat the entire area, but just to potentially get one or two of these features in that are highly functional, that maybe create that example where, you know, I've seen grocery stores and old strip centers all around Dallas where they've tried to convert parking spaces into permeable spots, and doesn't make a lot of sense to me just from an environmental perspective. Just it's difficult. We're not necessarily making a lot of headway on water quality improvements, but the idea is, can we find something that is really highly functional, hopefully not super expensive, but something that the city could point at and say, look how this was done, and it can be replicated throughout the city. I don't know if that's possible with the grading, because we're not at the grading point yet, but something I like to see considered, particularly on that side.
Can you pardon my ignorance? What is a bioretention cell?
Essentially, it's kind of a landscape parking island where you would have kind of the turf grass coming up and the trees planted on top of it. It's really just a sunken planting area. And the water, the storm water would flow into it it would filter through the filter media, and then with proximity to the box culverts, you just have an under drain from that would go into the box culvert. So there's potential that you could, I don't know what the storm drainage plan is, but there's potential that maybe you could save on installing storm drainage on that side, and you just have everything drained to those little bioretention islands, and then drop it straight to the culvert. Could be feasible, just something I'd encourage you all looking at. The other thing is, and it looks like you probably maximize this to the extent that you can, is providing shade, provided shaded walking paths between all these buildings and from the multifamily to the south. If there's any way to increase shade along those walking paths, that would be great. And this should have been a question earlier, but the frontage of the store, is there patio seating planned in front of the Starbucks and in front of the Grab-and-Go area?
There is patio seating, in the Star.
No, there's a Starbucks in there.
Yeah.
There's a small patio seating in front of the Starbucks on the Tom Thumb property, and then, like I mentioned, we have generous sidewalks, at least 15 feet across all of the retail buildings to make sure we've got room to accommodate the patio should it lease to a food and beverage type user.
So I think the facing of the building is going to be optimal in terms of discomfort, because when it's going to be in the highest use, the sun's going to be back here and you'll probably have shade from the building. But to the extent that you can, I would love to see probably a little bit more greenery along the frontage, particularly in areas where you'll have a lot of pedestrians walking in and out, and folks using the patio spaces as well.
Thank you.
It's great. I'm excited to see Tom Thumb coming here. It's so needed in the area, and I'm sure it's. I'm excited too.
I think to the comment that was made earlier about how this doesn't seem of Redbird, if it weren't a grocery store, we probably wouldn't be making some of the compromises that we're making. But for purely the mission purpose of Redbird, you kind of twist yourself into any pretzel you can to get a quality grocery store. And so that's why we've made some of those compromises.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got a couple, most of the thoughts I have already been spared, but on this building at the bottom right, block A, I'm just wondering if it would make sense to maybe that, the east-west, the planned east-west section of it, just turn it down instead and create patio space that is facing the outdoor space across the street.
Check it down.
Turn it down.
This way and have.
Right, yeah. It would slightly help the condition of that, creating a more urban corner, I think, and then that patio space facing the open green space that we saw 6 weeks ago, really, in my opinion, be a really interesting space.
When you say turn it down, do you mean make it straight and done?
So you come up, you're coming at an angle because you have that drive, and then instead of going this way, you go that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So that was one, and then the other thing, I know that you are very pressed for parking. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to maybe do compact spaces in this spine that connects the lot B to the top. There's already accessible parking that has portion of the aisle right where the enhanced paving is in front of the store. I'm wondering if you can use, oftentimes we'll use compact spaces, but we only use the depth. We keep the 9 width, we shrink them down to 16.5 and call them compact, and then create a walkway case where people can really, because they're gonna walk that way.
So you're to make that connection.
They're not gonna go around, they're gonna walk to the parking lot, and I think there might be a way, and maybe that way can squeeze out a couple of feet from somewhere and make that pedestrian connection.
We can look into that. I know that, Tom Thumb has been very specific about the size of its parking space. But we'll take that as a challenge.
And it's not a lot of the parking, and some of those parking spaces will be allocated to A and B anyway.
Right.
Um,
No, I think you're absolutely right. No one, not no one, but most people.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so to me, all right, I'll be relatively brief as I get. One of the things I've thought of is we need to start checking the architects, right? They start doing things that, and second guessing. So I'm gonna point out something, and then you don't need to respond, because I know you have plenty of time to prepare an answer in advance. But I was able to get that grocery store turned 90 degrees, face that corner, that important place where the west wing is that we looked at 2 months ago, and have all that parking on that, or get to move that building B somewhere up or over. But actually rotate it 90 degrees and face the Tom Thumb to the main building. I like that relationship better, but we won't go into that. I'm gonna work with what you brought us today. If you haven't thought of that, prepare an answer, then look at it. In the interim, give them what we have and how we're doing it. The one thing I would say is, I like the idea of connecting the apartments up and giving a lot of people who will to walk the grocery store.
Yeah.
And so let's help them a little bit more. I think there's a lot of, and this was the root of my parking question. You may have a little capacity you can translate over to making that connection from them up and around a little bit bigger, a little greener, more landscaping up against the side of the Tom Thumb there. You've got that corner there with the little triangular thing, keep coming down to the actual, now there. That is about the most inefficient, the parking right next to it and moving around, that's about the most inefficient thing you could ever find. So I wonder if there's a better way we could use some of that. You don't have to have every last space. Somewhere you can translate some of that stuff into, took its pointer, didn't it? Yeah. I'm sorry. But I just wonder if taking some of this inefficiency and putting it right into here to very much bolster the connection between these folks are going to walk across and come up and then access the retail this way. If you couldn't take some of that space and better utilize over here, or have something that comes off here someplace to make that more of an event across. That's kind of what I have, because you're right, you're working within the constraints, you're not moving stuff around very much, but I think there's an opportunity here to do something a little better, and maybe reorient the trash stuff instead of pointing it right at where all the pedestrians are gonna be. Can we turn it another way, or commission art for the doors? I don't stuff like that. That to me is the opportunity that you have still within these very real constraints that you deal with.
What was driving this empty space that have something to do with the truck getting in and
Yeah.
in turning radius or?
Well, it's
What's left?
when the trucks come in, it's a one-way truck dock, so the trucks, of course, come in here, turn, that's the truck dock, come in here, back out, and exit here. This area here is potentially used in the event that there's a truck here and that some truck comes in and needs to stop and stay
Yeah,
for a
so-
brief period of time.
Yes, this really is road.
Well, I mean, that right there, that's fine, unfortunately, but again,
I was just speaking about the inefficiency of these.
it is, it's just it's a because the building's at a 45-degree angle, that corner, you have some inefficiencies, and I'm not gonna pretend to understand how the backside of a grocery store works. Don't go back there if I can help it, so, they're just pointing out that I think if you've got some stuff to work with there, try to better utilize the space to to enhance that pedestrian connection, which at this point is pretty much a couple of paint stripes. I would suggest to it. So for instance, you could even, all those parking spaces that come up, you don't have to have every space. Some of the ones in that suite as it gets next to the building can be taken out and that can be landscaped, give a much bigger, much more impressive landscape transition as you turn the corner to go towards.
Oh, that's good. That's an interesting exhibit, what's going on off the drive on the western wall of the buildings.
Yeah.
Make it a little bit more.
Or maybe that's it, maybe you walk the extra stuff to the other side and you come and you still got the truck dock, the service dock and the trash can for the building B there. And maybe that becomes a more connection between the two.
Direct path out of the residential building, which folks are gonna take.
Yeah, they're gonna walk the
streets.
streets.
But they're gonna walk.
Sure.
We're walking trees, trucks that are on the wall over here, I don't care where the connection is. So those are details. Well,
Okay, we'll bring it.
yeah, well, think about it.
While we're looking at that specific area, that particular landscape island that sits right on top of the culvert right there. That would be my favorite, I'll make back there where we're just talking about. Yeah, that's gonna be the area where most of the stormwater pollution is gonna be focused from the truck traffic and the trash and floatables and all that. If it could be graded to direct flow through that, yes, trash will accumulate it, but it would be an easy spot to collect that trash and keep it from getting into the bottom culverts in the first place.
Okay, with that, that's my comment, we'll leave it with Eureka's summary. Any other comments before we? Okay, with that, James has a really deep breath, buddy, you done?
I'm debating, say one more thing, but I think
This
we can stop.
Okay, this is Chad. Okay, very good. Arturo, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Arturo, if you can help us summarize.
Yes, to start out with the first one, the panel advises building A's location or configuration be reconsidered to front and strengthen the east-west connecting street in alignment with Redbird's West Wing. Similarly, location and treatment of the rear of building B should be studied to better address and hold the northeast corner. Comment number 2, the panel recommends Tom Thumb's rear loading dock be better screened. Number 3, the panel suggests landscape islands closest to box culverts be treated as bioretention cells. I'll add its purpose to that recommendation. Number 4, the panel recommends walking paths in front of buildings be shaded as much as possible. Number 5, the panel advises a portion of the parking be designed as compact spots to allow for a pedestrian connection, to allow for a possible pedestrian connection from Tom Thumb to Building B. And lastly, the panel recommends additional thought be given to the pedestrian connection from the Palladium Building to Tom Thumb to strengthen strengthening it and making it more usable and pleasant environment by reconsidering some of the potential inefficiencies in rear service and parking areas. Yeah, massage a little bit at one. Good. That's my grammar.
Okay. No, you did it, Chad. All right, well, very well, thank you all.
Thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it.
And, okay, with that, what do you think? Got some things in the queue?
Yeah. We had 1 or 2 that we thought would come in this one, so.
We'll keep you busy. Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Hey, see you.